Hey everybody, welcome again to another episode of Disability Landscape. Charlie Bros here with my co-host Mark Knudsen. Mark, what's happening today?
Well, we've got a individual today who represents an organization, and let me introduce him. Aaron Holmes with Wiggle Your Toes.
You got it.
I got it. Welcome to the show.
That was impressive. You nailed it.
Right.
And thank you.
I agree. I impressed myself with nailing it. Charlie just lost money with the control room probably.
Yep.
So, Aaron, Wiggle Your Toes is an agency or an organization that does what?
Yeah, we are set up to help the limb loss and limb difference community, basically. We were formed after I was injured back in 2007. I was helping an individual change a tire on the side of a highway, 394 out in Wayzata, actually. When an individual traveling at 55 miles an hour hit me from behind, pinning me between the two vehicles. So I went from this, fast-paced father of three, husband, running an IT and engineering consulting firm downtown Minneapolis, to complete red light, stop in an instant. So after I recovered, which was, it took a few months to get up and get going again and walking and things like that, dependent on prosthetic legs, I realized the world of uncertainty that we had been thrown into from the setback, the loss of a limb, because there just wasn't a lot of information out there. So that's
Both limbs.
Right.
Yeah, both limbs, right. That we decided at that point to start a group, an organization, a nonprofit here in Minnesota that supports the limb loss and limb difference community.
Okay.
Yeah, because looking at your website, I mean, you name it, your organization touches it, one way or the other. I think it was like housing, education. Why don't you just talk about some of the different...
Yeah, the easiest way to talk about what we do at Wiggle Your Toes is the three pillars are heal, recover, and flourish. And heal is that ever important advocacy. Somebody like me that was injured knew nothing about this new world that they've been thrown in.
Yeah, 'cause me and Charlie, we were born this way.
Right,
so
right, yeah.
For us,
That's what you've known,
It's
right?
been our
Yeah.
world, but
Yep.
sometimes I think it's got to be tougher for individuals like you because, people ask us, well, gosh, how do you handle it so well? It's like, well, I don't know what I'm missing. I've never...
Right,
But
right,
for-
Years
exactly.
of practice.
Yep.
Years of practice.
Yeah, but
Yeah.
For you, you know what it was like to run and walk and
Yep.
and all that. So
Yeah, and that's what my goal was, is to get back into somewhat of that life that I had known. And
Right.
we knew it wasn't possible to get everything back. It was going to be maybe a little slower, more methodical, but our goal was to discover those tools and the individuals, the passionate people that make up the prosthetics world per se, to get connected with them and get back and get going again. So that's the heal pillar of Wiggle Your Toes, is that advocacy. The recover is guidance, referrals, home modifications. Some people need a ramp just to return from the hospital, to get home from the hospital and get into their home. So just the guidance and referrals and support there. And then Flourish is the clinics that we have. We host a lot of clinics for individuals in the limb loss or limb deficient community, where they might want to either get back into a sport if it was a traumatic situation, or for the people that are congenital, they want to try a sport where they might not have had access to, not necessarily a sport, but an activity.
Really,
Yeah,
and that's
Yeah.
such a key factor.
Absolutely. So we partner with physical therapists and medical professionals, and make sure we have enough volunteers to support individuals and keep it safe and fun. So
I have to ask the irony of the name Wiggle Your Toes.
yeah, great question.
Where did that come from?
Yeah, it's
I mean,
based.
we all believe in irony. But
It actually came from phantom pains and sensations that individuals that suffer traumatic loss. And I was in the hospital and I was blogging. They had set up a Caring Bridge site for me where I could keep people. At that time, I think my wife's first week overcharges was like $500, because that's when we had our cell phones, but you only got like 200 minutes or
Yep.
whatever,
Right,
and everybody's
right, yeah,
calling her.
yeah.
And it's
Yeah.
like blowing her phone up, and of course she's going to answer it, right?
Yeah,
So
yeah.
then we get the bill, but we created this Caring Bridge site, and I was blogging one night about this surgery that I knew I had the next day, and I was just kind of talking to people through the keyboard, saying, it's really weird. I can still wiggle my toes, even though I have no idea where they are, you know?
Right.
And it was just one of those.
So you still have that sensation?
Yeah, I'm doing it right now as I talk to you. It's kind of like
Oh,
I
really?
can still wiggle my
And you're
toes. So
15 years out from your accident.
yeah, 15 years out, but I still have those nerves and things are still connected there that I can still wiggle my toes. So I said something on Caring Bridge. I said, do me a favor. I have got a big surgery tomorrow. Wiggle your toes for me. And it just stuck, it just, I had no idea typing that it would stick, but when I got back out of surgery and eventually days later caught back up to the blog and people had posted, get well, instead of saying get well soon or we're thinking about you, they're like, we're wiggling our toes for you. So, so when it came around to starting the organization, I told my wife, I said, I think we should call it Wiggle Your Toes. And she said, not a chance. There's no way, right? Because it is a little different.
Right.
But when we do advocate, when I go into a hospital room and talk to someone that maybe was in a motorcycle accident, it certainly makes a connection when I tell them that story, why it's called Wiggle Your Toes, because they're battling right now why can I still feel this, or why am I still sensing pain in my big toe when it's no longer with me, right?
Because your brain just thinks the nerves are still there.
Absolutely. Yep.
And connecting, and so you are wiggling your toes in
Yep.
your brain, in your
Yeah.
mind, but
Right.
one way to do it.
Yeah, that for me, the thinking of that is just kind of
It's out there.
it's strange. I don't have to deal with it because I look like an amputee, but I have both legs, but I did have to surgically have one toe removed, but
Sure.
I don't have any phantom pain from,
Right,
from,
right.
from
I
that.
think we'll go further north next time.
Yeah. So then, after you got out of the hospital, getting back into life, did you go back into working IT? Are you still back working
I'm
IT?
not there anymore. Actually, I was in the hospital for 19 days, and we kind of took a proactive approach to recovery. And 19 days later, I returned home, and our home was fully accessible. I mean, I was able to
Oh, it was?
wheel up
was helpful.
the stairs was now a ramp, and we had a stair lift getting up to our upper level where the bedrooms are in the house. A stair lift that goes up the side of it.
Yeah.
And then, so we had a pretty aggressive, proactive approach to. We had rented my wife had rented a handicap accessible van with hand controls, so I was able to get in and out of there and kind of eliminate a lot of the barriers. So we didn't have a resource like Wiggle Your Toes is today.
No, yeah.
So we kind of made it up on the fly, and then I recovered. I started walking about 4.5 months later and swinging the golf club, which became therapy for me, playing golf. And I returned to work and realized that, my passion really shifted, as you would imagine.
Right.
It's like
Absolutely. Yeah.
You're thrown
A whole
into
different
this.
look on life now.
Yeah, and that's what it was. It was
Yep.
like you're thrown into this world that you know nothing about, but you need to know everything about it because you're going to depend on that for the rest of your life.
Right,
That,
yep.
medical was never really a part of my life, and prosthetics. I didn't know, if I was.
So this was the impetus for you creating Wiggle Your Toes, going, okay, I experienced this for myself. We need to help others in this situation.
Yeah, we had built up such a wealth of knowledge and information that helped guide me through my outcome, and we started talking and getting phone calls and emails from people. My brother's returning from Afghanistan, or my cousin was in a motorcycle accident. Where did you go? Who did you talk to? What kind of prosthetics do you wear? So we knew that there was a need, right? And we had built up, like I said, a wealth of information. So we started giving back, through my story and what we had learned, and just guiding people through post-limb loss, after a traumatic situation. And then as we grew and morphed into what we are today, we started offering these clinics where, you get the heal, recover, and then now what? well, I want clinics. I want to learn to golf again, or figure out how to wake surf or downhill ski or snowboard or gardening or support groups, things like that. So we try to figure out for every level of the individuals in the community that we serve, we try to figure out how to make sure we can provide.
Very multifaceted in what you do and offer.
Yeah, and we're small enough that we can pivot. There's no bureaucry. We just
That's a good thing, yeah.
So if it makes sense, we're going to do it,
Yeah,
right? And if we fail, we're going to pick
exactly.
ourselves up and do it again.
And I mean, I've done quite a bit of wheelchair sports, so just in the arena of sports for the disabled,
Yeah.
amputees have their own set of games. So
Yeah.
it's not like wheelchairs are competing. I mean, amputees can compete in the wheelchair games, but for like the Paralympics or competition-wise,
Yeah.
there are games just for amputee athletes. In
Yeah,
that.
absolutely. And I played sled hockey for 9 years. And
Oh, did ya?
That's one of those sports that I think I got a phone call a week after, I was injured, and you should try to come. You should come out.
Was that
right?
John Schatzline? I mean,
What's
John,
that?
John Schatzline was the big
Okay.
was the big guy that got. By that time, sledge hockey was kind of going. Now, did you? Because I did sledge hockey
Okay.
for a couple years too, and I will say, I do know the difference between clean ice and I didn't think whenever when you watch hockey and you see the Zamboni going out there, I always thought, well, okay, that's gonna makes
Yeah.
it look pretty. Maybe they skate a little better.
Yeah.
And then one time when we were doing our sledge hockey practice, normally they don't clean the ice for us because I think you had to pay for it.
Sure.
We just wanted to get on ice, but this one time, it just so happened to be because I think they go so many hours so before one of our sessions, they
It's pretty chewed up.
they came with the Zamboni and did it before our session,
Oh.
and I went out on this clean ice.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh my gosh, now I know.
Like a dream, right?
Yeah.
It's like
I want the Zamboni every
exactly.
time now,
Like, so it's almost effortless, right?
Oh, it was.
Yeah.
Yeah. I was
Yeah.
like, oh my gosh, it was big. So, what are the different sports that you've had people get involved in then?
Yeah, well, the clinics what we run is, like I said,
the clinics, I
golf is a big one.
Yeah, I would
we
think
do
golf.
we do mountain biking.
Oh, mountain
we
biking,
we
okay.
partnered with the X Games when they were in town a few years ago and did an adaptive skateboarding clinic. Believe it or not, people want to skateboard even though they,
Wow.
I'm like, no, I'll watch. I'm a good watcher.
Right.
But running and
Yeah.
mobility clinics, we rent out the University of Minnesota field house starting in early December. We'll rent out the field house every Sunday through springtime, where people of all levels of disability can come out and use the track. Just how Minnesota is, it's hard to walk outside, right?
Right,
So
exactly.
if they can get in that field house, they've got the entire field house for 2 hours to walk at any level. If they want,
good.
if they're slower, we put them in the inside lane or whatever. But we just make sure everybody's got access to that. And wake surf and downhill ski and snowboard. We've done a pickleball clinic. Pickleball
have you?
up and coming.
Yeah,
it's
that
a-
is.
it's a sport that's
Pickleball continues to grow.
yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. So, and then people throw us ideas on things, and we consider that. And if we have a good enough interest in it, we'll do it. So we also have a Northern Minnesota mobility clinic that's been launched as well up in Brainerd, Hoyt Lakes, up in that area.
okay.
Yeah.
So when you say clinic, you mean you have an office up there, people up there, or
We will rent out. I think it's the Brainerd High School that we have for that clinic. It hasn't launched yet, but it's something that I need to help. I think it starts in a couple weeks. So, where we will have volunteers to make sure, like I said, it's safe and people can get in there, and individuals with limb loss or limb deficiencies can kind of work out together. We set some goals. Sit in a group and we talk to each other about what we want to do this week and what we want to
Okay.
accomplish by next week, what we want to accomplish by the end of the clinics, and then we all work towards those goals together. So whether it's walking 2 laps around or running a 50-second 400 or whatever, we'll figure it out. But
So- You say limb loss and limb deficiency. what is considered a limb deficiency?
Well, that's more congenital. That's born that way, right? You never you're not an amputee realistically because you never had surgery, so it's not, and you never lost a limb, but you were born with a limb deficiency or congenital, or, so yeah, that's kind of the buzzword now. So,
So we're the deficient ones.
Oh,
Yeah, I don't
been
think-
on deficient.
yeah, I don't think I like it. I mean, I think about that a lot. It's like there's got to be just one word for it. That challenged, or I don't. That's not even a good word. but-
Challenge is not a good
Yeah,
word.
yeah. So
but
maybe the three of us will come
There-
up with something.
There
and
are
we'll-
people that try to come up with phrases for people with disabilities, and those of us with disabilities go, "What were you thinking?" I mean,
Yeah.
differently able? No,
Yeah.
no.
Right.
no.
Right.
Or sometimes they go the other way and they just go over.
Or we should just start calling able-bodied people something.
Yeah.
Oh, I've been calling them something, right? I'm sure you've called them too. Now, don't give me that.
Timing's right,
Yeah.
No, it's all good. You got to have a sense of humor too.
Yeah.
So.
Now, with your organization, I would assume it takes money.
Yep.
And I haven't found trees that grow that money
We
type.
planted a lot of them, and none of them
Right,
do.
right. So how?
They wilted right up.
Yeah.
Yeah. How do you go about?
Yeah, we
funding
have a
for-
lot of corporate sponsors, and we have two major events here in Minnesota. One is a golf event that we've had out at Minnesota Valley in Bloomington
Gotcha.
for 13 years, and we just moved it out to Meadows at Mystic this year.
Oh, wow.
So it was our first go out at Meadows at Mystic. And that's in August typically, and we fill that up, so typically 144 golfers. And then after the tournament, we have a kind of a social event where we'll have a speaker from a recipient, somebody that's benefited from Wiggle Your Toes offerings, whether it's we've purchased them a running blade or we helped them get that ramp so they could return home, or we just provided some advocacy where they share their story. We have a nice dinner, sit-down dinner. Silent auction, sometimes live music. And then in February, we have an event right over here at the Metropolitan Ballroom in Golden Valley that we have. It's basically just a great party, a gala, where we have the silent auction, the live auction, live music, and typically 350 people show up.
I've been to one of them.
Have you?
Yeah.
All right.
It was probably 5-7 years ago, and
Okay.
yeah, it was an interesting event, and I wish I'd gotten a chance to meet more people involved there, because knowing what you guys do, it seems like something that I could say, oh, maybe I can help. Who
Sure.
knows,
Yeah. Yeah, it's fun, and that's how we raise our funds. The majority of our funds come through there, but we have, again, corporate sponsors. And companies invite us in to kind of share the Wiggle story, talk about our personal stories, and then they have a giving program at the corporation that an employee can donate, 50 cents an hour or whatever out of their paycheck. So a variety of ways that we raise funds, yeah.
Now, the time of your accident, I maybe you've said this, I don't remember. But now, do you have kids?
We do, yes. Yep.
Okay, and when you had your accident, were the kids around then?
Yeah, they were.
How did that adjustment go
I
for?
think I wouldn't want to say 7, 5, and 3 or something like that. How their age was at
so
the time.
that's a real
I'm not really good at
curiosity.
math. I could
I mean,
figure
I've
it
got
out,
two
but-
kids, but
Yeah.
but my kids, when they were born,
Yeah.
I was already
Yep.
in a wheelchair. So for you, it's
Yeah, it was
totally
a-
different, especially at that age, because they're just learning things.
Right.
And all of a sudden, Dad's got no legs.
Yeah, and that was the toughest time for me, I think, in the hospital was when they came up to visit for the first time, because you could see the brain, you could just see, especially on our oldest one, the curiosity there. And I was fortunate to get a brochure of a set of prosthetics that I think we kind of had made up our mind, this is what we're going after, because I think that's the technology that we need to get back to where we were. And I remember showing him, and I have a picture of it, but showing him that an individual wearing prosthetics walking with their kid on their shoulder, and his eyes got to sauce. It was like, those are going to be your legs? What that just doesn't make sense, which it shouldn't, right?
And I'm going to be on your back.
Right, yeah,
with
no, exactly. How about use a little one first? Use my
Right,
little
right,
brother.
yeah, Junior.
So
Practice it with a little guy.
So there had to have been like the immediate fear for yourself going, I'm never going to walk again.
Oh yeah, I think I went 48 hours, I figured, before I thought that there was a chance.
But then they introduced you to the idea of prosthetics and all that. We previously had Chris Eggert on from Channel 5, and he told us, how long it took him to learn to walk with one prosthetic. How was the procedure when you have two prosthetics like that?
Yeah, and I'm above the knee too, so I lost both knees and both ankles. Where he's a
a lot of flexibility gone.
Yeah. So I practiced a lot. I ended up I felt I was limited. I had access to physical therapy 2-3 times a week, which is maybe an hour session, and then I would be at my practitioner's, the clinic that I went to for my prosthetic, and I had access to parallel bars there maybe a half hour two times a week, right? So I didn't feel I was making progress, so we ended up setting up parallel bars in my basement so I could go and put them on at home and practice in the safety, because at that point you're gripping that bar pretty good. You're not just going to go walk on your own. You're nervous, you're scared, you've lost the proprioception. I don't feel the ground when I'm walking, so you're wondering if
there's something underneath you.
If there's something underneath, or maybe your toe.
We deal in the same situation, but
right.
But for you, you know what it was. Before we're first.
So I was scared to death. I mean, there's no question it was mentally and physically draining just to walk. I think the parallel bars were maybe 8 feet long, and I set a goal. I'm going to walk 16 feet today, once down and back. Tomorrow I'm going to do 32 feet, not 32 laps, just 2 laps, 4 laps, 6 laps every day, just try to double it.
To build that up.
And it took a while, but it by June, I was back on the golf course and back to work shortly thereafter. And, so we just kind of set goals and worked our butts towards those goals so we could.
And you're using a completely different set of muscles to walk then.
Yep. I'm using my hip flexors, so I'm throwing my hips forward, and the prosthetics are doing the rest. They're providing the resistance that a knee or an ankle would compensate. Yeah, it would provide. So.
And being as yours is above a knee, does it have a functional knee built into it?
No, like a powered knee?
Or something to that effect.
Yeah, it's basically it doesn't have a functional knee. What it does, it has sensors that talk to a hydraulic unit. I guess that's the simplest way to do it. So there's a hydraulic unit in the back of the knee, and the computer controls that hydraulic unit.
The leg in that manner.
Yeah, so I'm swinging with my hips basically, and then the resistance is being provided by the sensors and the computer and the hydraulic.
There's a lot of electronics involved in prosthetics these days that, when I was growing up, did not exist.
Right. Yep. And that's when I was injured. So I was injured 15 years ago, and the microprocessor controlled knee had only been out for 5 to 10 years. So it was very new. We actually had to really look hard for somebody in town that had the experience to fit somebody with the microprocessor controlled knee. So I drove 45 minutes from my house to the clinic that had experience fitting this knee at that time. So it's become much more popular. Now insurance is starting to accept it a little bit more. So,
and that's the disconcerting thing. If you can have a prosthetic that's going to give you more free mobility, but you have to argue with your insurance company about getting it.
Yeah, and that's still a challenge today. I mean, so for some cases they don't feel it's medically necessary, and it drives me crazy to hear that about kids, right? Kids,
definitely.
Yeah, and kids need prosthetics every 6 to 12 months, right?
They grow out of them.
They're growing like crazy. It's like a pair of shoes.
So is that part of your advocacy though too? Is to help people go to bat for insurance with
Absolutely.
insurance companies?
Yep. That's a big part, both state level, and at first it was, I think you used the word battle. We used to talk about battling all the time, but it's really, I go back to the days or even the minutes before I was injured. It's a new world. I knew nothing about it, right? And it's very similar with people writing policy and the legislators, creating laws that might protect the consumers that depend on these products. So I think our approach is more going in, and if we can get that audience educate them on the benefits of these and what it's going to do for an individual, be able to get them back to work, back into the community, and things like that. So.
Good.
How long after your accident did it take for your kids to kind of start sitting on your lap or?
Oh, it didn't take long at all for that.
Oh,
yeah.
it did. Okay, good.
Yeah, for that, that was pretty quick, and that was a big part of my motivation is I knew they weren't slowing down. So
Right.
it was like we had built this lifestyle that we were accustomed to, and the boys played hockey, and my daughter was in figure skating and competitive dance, and I knew they were still going to play hockey if I was sitting at home by myself.
Right.
So it was.
You just got to assure the kids.
Yeah, exactly. It was my motivation to get caught up with them, not to bring them into my world.
Yeah, because for you, like you say, you weren't entrenched in that world. For me, I grew up around it, so
Right.
my kids, were automatically
Yep.
into it. So they knew a lot of other, like Charlie and my other friends who were disabled, and they realized, oh yeah, my dad's just like, like anyone
These are
else.
just normal people. for
Yeah,
them.
yeah,
Yeah.
just nor-
Yep.
yeah,
they're
just
used to
normal
that, right?
people.
They grew up with that, right?
Yeah, they grew up with us. Where in your situation, you gotta assure your kids, okay, yeah, I'm gonna be a little slower on things, but I'm still expecting things out of you guys,
Right, exactly.
Right, yeah.
I'm still watching you.
I'm still watching
You're
you.
faster than I am.
Right, but I know
but
where
I
you
can
sleep.
catch you.
Yeah.
I will catch you eventually, right?
And every place you go, remember, there's handicap parking. I could be there.
Yeah, exactly. So, and I think it was good for them, especially looking back. They're older now, but I think they have that awareness where they might hold the door for one of us, or
Well, they've got that awareness.
Yeah, I think
exactly. And both my kids,
Yep.
they know that too, and especially, and I would remind them in high school too. If you see someone who's getting picked on,
Yep.
who has some kind of if it's cognitive or a disability,
Anything, right?
yeah, you don't let that
up.
slide. And
Yep.
my daughter,
And we'll forgive you, right?
Right.
We'll pick you up from the
Right.
principal's office.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, you're absolutely right, and I think it is good for the kids to see that, to be around that environment, because they think of something more than themselves.
Yeah. So.
Well, Mark, we need to wrap it up.
Yep.
Aaron, wiggle your toes. You have any events coming up in the near future? I know you have the February one.
And to get a hold of us, we're wiggleyourtoes.org is our website, and we're pretty active on social media as well. The Wiggle Your Toes Facebook page always has our events and activities, fundraisers, clinics, things like that. But right now we're looking at we've got a really cool bourbon tasting event coming up on November 15th. We've got a ski and snowboard clinic coming up towards early next year. Our February fundraiser is going to be obviously early 2023, and then mountain bike in spring of 2023 as well.
Very cool. Well, Aaron, thank you for being with us today.
Absolutely, thank you guys.
Yep.
Hey, I'm Charlie Brose. He's Mark Knutson. Our guest, Aaron Holm. You've been watching Disability Landscape. We'll see you next time.